I'm not fucking
Before I came on stage, my mother said to me, break an egg. I said, Mum, it's not break an egg. It's crack an egg. You don't break eggs, you crack eggs. You don't break the Enigma code, crack the Enigma code. You don't break a whip, you crack a whip. And you don't smoke break, you smoke crack. Ooh, cracking cheese grommet. Ooh, breaking cheese grommet. No. No. So, my name's Ed Maynard, and people often ask me, Ed, are you just Ed Miliband in disguise? And I say, well, that's a great question. A few years ago, I used to be on a university radio show. I did it with a very good friend of mine, whose name escapes me.
Fucking bass, Ned.
And I used to write sketches for this radio show. And the thing about writing radio sketches is, you know, because you don't have the visual element, you can sort of make these jokes that, you know, only make sense to the audience just through the perception of sound, of audio. So one of the sketches that I wrote was this sketch about these three spies, two of which I named after my inorganic chemistry lecturers at the time, Professor Darren Bradshaw and Dr. Paul Wilson. And basically, yeah, I won't go into the whole sketch now. I mean, you can listen to it, you know, on Surge, Comedy Radio Sofa, I don't know what episode. And one of the jokes that came through is, obviously you couldn't see these spies. You couldn't tell if one, for instance, had you know, had a problem with his eyesight, for example. And therefore, it would suddenly be revealed through the line, Bradshaw, you're blind, that one of the characters was blind. You know, the audience didn't know that until you got to that point in the sketch. That was the beauty of doing it over radio, of doing it with just the audio perception. So, I mean, it would have been a great shame if someone was to take all that hard work and the jokes you wrote and turned it into a pointless visual play strung out over fucking 1 fucking hour. The original sketch is 5 minutes long, and they found the bloody files then. You know, honestly, I'm surprised Kieran didn't mention the shit bowl as well, because, you know, when I go for a shit, I don't like to leave the side of the toilet like dirty, or clog up the drain with my shit. So what I tend to do is I've bought this plastic basin that I sort of put into the toilet bowl, and then I sort of sit on the toilet and I do my business. And you know, we're all students, we're all a bit lazy, you know, we all leave our washing up bowl in the sink, don't we? Well, sometimes I just, you know, I leave it in the toilet, especially when it's not full, right? Because there's still more space to fill it up, so I don't really see a problem with that. Don't see a problem with it at all. But yeah, one thing that you should know about me as I was on Easter holidays recently. And I really enjoyed my Easter because I wanted to bring the spirit of festive Christmas front garden decorations to Easter. So what I did was I duct taped myself to a homemade cross under a tree in my front garden, and then whenever any kids walked by, I pressed a button that lit me all up and launched a few flares out, and then I sung my own made-up Easter songs at them about death and decay, the meanings of Easter. I was a bit annoyed actually, because it turns out that there aren't any traditional Easter songs, and I'm pretty shit at writing songs and also singing them. So soon I was getting eggs thrown at me, which, you know, I felt very proud about because it symbolised the attempts of consumer fetishism of capitalism to assault the religious, you know, festivity, the meaning behind Easter. So I took those eggs to my face and I waited as the hours rolled by. Eventually Tesco's Express ran out of eggs and the kids pissed off. And then one of my neighbours came round quite angry and he sort of stomped up to just underneath the cross, and he looked up to me and he said, "Oi, you!" And I thought, well, this is just like the Romans did to Jesus. So I thought I'd better maintain my character and think of something quite prophetic to say back to him. But it turns out that it's quite hard to think of something as good as what Jesus would have said when you're on the spot and you haven't drunk for 10 hours and you've got a headache and you're covered in egg. I mean, the best I could come up with was, when it comes to lentils, people say I'm mental. I know they're ornamental, but why do we have to see their genitals? But yeah, it's not very good, is it? So instead I just looked down at him and I said, I wouldn't really stand there, mate. I've been up here for 10 hours, absolutely bursting for a piss now. I didn't really want to do it back in front of the kids. That's indecent exposure, isn't it? And he sort of accepted that fact and he moved to the side, and we waited there a few moments awkwardly, because, you know, I couldn't really go now because there was a guy just standing there, not really good with, you know, urinals. It was cubicle really, the anxiety. And after a while he interrupted the silence, and he said, "Look, mate, you know, you're making an absolute racket and a complete mess of the pavement with all this yodeling and yoke." And I went, "Yodeling and yoke? It's quite good actually. That's a good name for the new tradition I made." So I reached into my pocket and I got out a piece of parchment like what Jesus would have had, and I noted that one down. And then he looked back up at me and he said, "Turn off your phone." And he said, what did he say? Gosh, so long ago now, 2 weeks. And he said, "Oh, well, why don't you find, you know, something more, you know, better to do over Easter, you know, something less, you know, destructive as this? Why don't you go train spotting?" So I took his advice, and for the next 2 weeks of my Easter holidays, I went about graffitiing dots on the side of train carriages, which I must admit was actually more fun than doing the whole religious festivity thing. So, you know, recommend that people give it a go. But yeah, I thought I'd just end on a letter, and probably some cleaning up to do as well by the looks of it. So this is one of the letters I've received from a member of the audience. I don't really want to touch anything. Whew. Thanks for writing in, obviously. Dear Ed, I heard that you were doing a stand-up about great inventions. Well, I wasn't actually, was I? This stand-up's about Easter and the concept of death. So I don't really know where you even heard about what stand-up I was going to do. So get your facts right next time. Anyway, I heard you were doing a stand-up about great inventions, so I thought I'd send in this letter to contribute. It's probably going over 5 minutes now as well. It's a bit annoying, really. I think one of the greatest inventions was the wheel. Before that, cars could only go forwards or backwards, not left or right. No. Just no. Yeah.